Hello guys, and welcome back to our next Visual Basic example, and today's example we will be looking in select case statement. So what is select case statement? You can try to think select case statement as an extended version of if and else statement, except that it has more than two options or two choices or two statements that you want to test. So for example, in the if and else statement, you only tend to have most of the time true or false or yes or no. But in select case statement, when you tend to have more than several choices of statement that you want to test the expressions, you can use the select case statement. So this is a very good example of how to illustrate the select case example work. Like for example, when you have an expression that contains value 1, if it has the value of 1, then it performs action 1. If it has value of 2, it performs the action 2. And as you have more and more value, it will perform several values as well. So a very good example to test the select case statement is that we can try to use the select case statement as a grade checker. So for example, like if you have a score between if you have a score like for example 91, and when you look in the table you see that this 91 actually falls in the value of A minus, so you can actually use this to test several values that are expression, and you can get the corresponding result. And what we're going to do in this example is that when you have a score, you want to know what is the grade, and you will actually able to set the range for that. So like right now we have already created a project called Grade Score Selection, and I'm using Microsoft Visual Studio 2017. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a button. We're going to put in the button on the form first, and then what we have is we need to have a text box where we will be inputting the value of the grades that we want to check. And lastly, we need to have in a label. Of course, I would actually choose it label just for simplicity, just to display. So the idea is that I'm going to use a button to check the value in the text box here, and to display the value, the corresponding value grade into label 1. So since I'm going to click the button here, and then it will actually shows me to this sub that actually handles this, and I want to assign a variable to my value that I put into the text box. So I'm just going to put here private grade as integer, because we are actually using a value here as integer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to assign that particular variable to the value in the text box that we're going to put in. So like for example here, grade is actually equals to the value of the text box, and since we haven't changed the design name of the text box, it has a default name of text box 1 and text. Of course, as you can see here, there is actually no problem, but there is one thing that we need to be aware, is that since we assign grade as an integer, we have to make sure that the value of the text box text has to be an integer. So what you can do is you can try to put in the CINT, which is convert to integer. You can try to convert any expression into an integer. So now we already have the grade variable. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to use this grade variable in the select case statement. So we have to call select the case, and what is the case that we want to check? It is the grade. And now we have already put in here. So I'm just going to use a very simple example here, where we know that for B plus, it's going to be from 87 to 89. So we're just going to put case 87 to 89, and then we're just going to put in the value. If let's say any value falls between 87 to 89, then we're going to display that value into label 1. Label 1 text as B plus. Okay, let's put that B plus there. And then we have A minus, which is 90 to 92. Case 90 to 92, and then of course I'm just going to copy here and put it into here, which is the A minus, and of course the next will actually follow as well. I'm just going to copy this and just going to change and just try to change this a bit. So it's from 92, and then I have 93 to, let's check back on the image, 93 to 96, 93 to 96, and of course I'm going to change down here 97 to 100. 100, let's put this an A plus and A. Okay, so this is actually a really simple example on how we're going to use this. Since just let me do double check on the image here right now. So we have 97 to 100, A plus, 93 to 96, A, 90 to 90, A minus, and B plus. Okay, cool. So now we have this. What we're going to do is we're just going to try to run the code. Let's press Control Save here and press Start. So now the form is actually building and compiling. So now we have a form here. So since we checked just now that we want to see whether if the values actually falls within this range here. So I'm just going to put 95 and see whether if it gets A. So I put in a 95 and I get the value of A. If I get 90, let's say I put 88 here, I get a B plus. And then let's try again. Let's try to put on 99 and I get an A plus. So this is actually a quite simple example of using a select case statement to implement a grade checking. Of course, in this example I use a very simple code where I only use just 4 statements here. I only just really use 4 statements here. But this is actually good enough to give you an idea on how to use a select case statement. I hope you guys actually enjoy watching this video, and if you have any more suggestion on what kind of examples that you want me to do in Visual Basic, I will be actually quite happy to do it, and please let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching the video, and have a good one.